What can Stellaris teach you about advancement? I actually was originally putting this into a bunch of smaller episodes as a short, and then I realized Stellaris actually makes a fantastic example, so we're going to change things up a little bit, go through Stellaris and talk about what can we actually learn about how this is a great measure of progress. Real quick, what I love about Stellaris is that it is a strong, accurate measure of how the universe would theoretically work on a galactic scale. You know, we have a lot of problems because at the end of the day, functionally, many planets would be completely self-contained economies. You have no need to ship things from one planet to another in any way that we, as of humans right now, can understand. And so they do a really good job of kind of guessing what it would look like and how it would work. And there's a bit of, fudge room there, but they do a good job. And so we'll be taking a look at it. And I think one of the things that's really important to note right now is this whole notion of armies. Yes, as we start the game, you have no army. As you develop through the game, you have more armies. And I don't mean you specifically, I mean you as civilization. Yes, when you start out at the Stone Age, nothing. When you develop down further, you start having 3 primitive armies, and then at some point you start developing an industrial army. But the key here actually is that the number of armies significantly improves. And I think this is something that most people don't really understand, because historically we have lots of documents that talk about really big armies. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know about you guys, but I am pretty sure that most of that is exaggeration, because I don't really think they had any way to actually measure the size of the armies. And I have to tend to agree with the historians who say that most armies, back in, say, for example, the Bronze Age, most of the armies probably never exceeded a certain size. I don't remember what the actual number is. I'm going to say 80,000 was a huge army back then. Most of the armies were probably in the 5,000 to 10,000 range. That's probably pretty typical. And this is kind of the point. As we developed, like the Renaissance age, the armies actually got bigger because the civilization had developed to a point where we could actually support more people who were dedicated solely to fighting. And that is actually a really big transition into the industrial age. When we entered the industrial age, we exited this stage of having just, more like a conscript army where we just basically go, okay, whoever can fight, you're fighting now, let's go, everyone to the battle. And actually said, okay, now we can actually have these things called dedicated professional soldiers. And professional soldiers fight, and non-soldiers don't. They are called civilians. And this is a really big deal, right? Because that indicates that civilization has reached a point where we can support the number of things. People talk about, what is AI going to do to the future? And at the end of the day, one of the things AI will definitely do is allow us to have really flipping huge armies. And I know people will be like, well, won't they make robot soldiers? And yeah, lots of people are doing it right now, but I'm pretty sure once certain things happen the way that they're going to probably happen, that's going to change, and people are going to be like, maybe it's not a great idea to arm the robots. Just a possibility. I know Boston Dynamics loves to play with their robot soldiers, and it looks really good on paper. But there are problems there, and once those problems start getting exploited, the aesthetic quality of using machines for combat will fade quickly. Robots will very likely start taking roles that we traditionally have given to the lower or the weaker portions of society, like a farmer or a miner. Yes? And this is really kind of that point. And this is what I love about this. Yes, you can see at the beginning, honestly, there's only one job at the beginning of civilization. We have hunter-gatherers. At some point, we start developing, agriculture. It's a big deal, right? And all of a sudden, we actually have this notion of, maybe we need someone who's dedicated to X, someone who's dedicated to Y, and someone who's dedicated to Z. And these people are all specialized, but it was incredibly limited in the number of people. I don't know the number, but honestly, probably in the Bronze Age, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets up to close to 90 or even 99 people growing food for every one person not growing food. Whereas today, we've completely flipped that scale. Yes, we have one person who is able to grow the food for 100 people. And as we start seeing large-scale automated farming equipment, that number is going to change even more. Do not think of robots farming as, a little humanoid robot farming. The robots that are farming already exist, and they're simply plugging in a GPS navigation suite into a combine or whatever machine they need, and it does the work for them. And right now, one of the biggest questions on the planet right now is actually figuring out how to automatically diagnose issues within the system, because the combine is a complex machine. And figuring out those individual components jamming and making sure that there's a way to quickly and easily fix those things without having to take the machine into a specialist shop is one of the biggest obstacles we're facing. But once that happens, you're looking at a machine that can basically plow fields for hundreds, thousands of people without rest. You can see a combine harvester is used to cover, I don't remember how many acres, thousands of acres. And that's kind of the point. Once it becomes automated, the workload becomes even easier for us. And it changes everything, because now we'll be looking at farmers who are more or less able to farm an entire village worth of ye olden days worth of food by themselves. Obviously, that presents new problems, and we have to think about those kinds of things, i.e., who would really want to live out in the middle of nowhere watching a bunch of robot machines farming? Well, actually, I don't think it would bother me that much myself. But I mean, this is really the point that I am trying to drive in here. We have these machines that are starting to automate and take tasks. We will have mining machines that are able to mine. A big problem there is going to be figuring out the content of the material it's mining. In other words, a mining machine is going to have a hard time telling, am I mining iron or am I mining marble? I don't know. And so we're going to need to find ways to help them do that kind of thing. But once we figure those problems out, and once we make sure that the machines are able to actually run consistently, the number of people working on those equipment will dramatically decrease. And all of a sudden, we are going to see a massive explosion of new workers able to work in fields. Now, I don't actually mean literal fields. I mean technological fields, ideas, thoughts. See, we are at this point, and it's really exciting because for the first time in our civilization, we actually have this possibility where basically everyone is going to need to be college level educated. And I know people are going to go and say, well, doesn't that make it an unfair advantage for people who are, too dumb? Well, that's actually really harsh, first of all. There actually really isn't something I would call as people who are too dumb. Rather, there are people who have a desire to do something and a people who do not have the desire to do something. One of the smartest people I know is a farmer. And if you actually talk to the guy, he sounds like an idiot. That's harsh. It sounds mean, but it's true. However, if you assume that and you treat him that way, he will take you to the cleaner and back again before you even realize it. He will fleece you for every penny you got if you try to make a deal with him and you think you're going to outsmart him. No joke, I'm totally 100% seriously. One of the most smart people I've ever met is a farmer. You can see it in Dilbert. There's a lot of humor about how these working people aren't necessarily dumb. And that's because of other things. It has nothing to do with the actual intelligence of the people performing those duties. You guys have a good one.